Its full planning commission meeting had said that the time has come when we must link farmers with the markets. His suggestion was that let's, as a first step, amend the APMC Act. The APMC Act has to be amended. The argument is let the companies come and buy directly from the farmers. Farmers will get a better price and the cartelization that is taking place in the mandis will go away. So the idea is that we move away from that system of agriculture which, as I told you, Indira Gandhi had built to a new paradigm of agriculture. Now let's like to understand what it means. APMC Act came up at the time when we set up the mandis in India. Along with the Green Revolution, there were two planks of strategy which were very important, which I think were remarkable efforts made by Indian planners. Then the idea was that if there is a surplus coming in, agriculture surplus, the prices would dip at the time of the harvest. So the farmers had no incentive to go on producing the same crop. So we must provide a assured or a minimum assured price to the farmer so that his incentive or his interest in the crop remains. That is why the Agriculture Prices Commission was formed and we had the MSP phenomena coming in the country. The second was when we had a huge surplus coming in, again it would be creating a problem because mandis will not be able to cater to that, or the private trade would not be able to cater to that. So they set up the Food Corporation of India to actually ensure that you buy that whatever is you procure whatever comes into the mandi which is not bought by private trade, and then you can use it for public distribution system and so on. Now this system, with all its gaps and its failures or its negative points, has done this country remarkably well. But this country which is no longer appreciating what the institutions have done is wanting to dismantle it. We in India, despite the inflation, whatever it is in India, we have never had the feeling of what real inflation is. In the early 80s, I happened to travel to Brazil. In Brazil, at that time, the inflation rate was 440%. Just to get a feel of what the inflation would be with 440% inflation, I walked into a shop in the morning. There were 20 people ahead of me, roughly 20 people. We were buying bread. By the time my turn came to buy bread, the price had shot up 3 times. That's the inflation that we have never faced. In India, with high 10% inflation, 11% inflation. And what is responsible for keeping the inflation low, I think is something which I have never understood, the role the FCI or the food management system that this country has. There are gaps, there are problems, but I think that needs to be strengthened further, you need to improve it further, rather than throwing away the entire process of this country. Now what is being done in 2006, the government, as you know, Mr. Sharma Pawar amended APMC Act for a number of states. He was also linking up with incentives. If you do APMC Act, I'm sure the Agriculture Minister would remember, he was telling Agriculture Minister, if you do APMC Act, then you get the subsidy or then you get the financial support. They were linking up with the financial support, so it's a kind of a blackmail that took place. But nevertheless, in 2006, we actually amended our APMC Act and we allowed private companies to buy directly from the farmers. It was wheat, the first crop that came into the picture. What happened was, in 2006 was not a bad year for wheat. It was an excellent year for wheat. And suddenly we found that the godowns, official godowns were empty, the private godowns were full. Now the government of India had no control over the private godowns. The companies that moved in were Hindustan Lever, were Rallis India, was Cargill, was Australian Wheat Board. Australian Wheat Board incidentally was exporting wheat to us and also buying wheat within the country. It was remarkable because you see this process of development. They export food and then they buy food. They're waiting for us to allow that food to be shipped out at some stage. But nevertheless, they bought 5 million tons of food grains which were a shortfall in the country. So to meet our own requirement, domestic requirement, Government of India bought wheat at double the price from the international market. 2007, again the same system was stretched, and total we bought 8 million tons in those 2 years from international market at double the price to which we paid to our farmers. And then I think the government came under tremendous pressure and they realized that it was a mistake. So eventually they did not withdraw that APMC order, but they ordered all the private companies that you dare not go into the rural areas and buy directly from the farmers. Since then, the bigger companies have not moved into the rural areas to buy directly from the farmers, and that is why building up a huge buffer stock in India, as you all know. But the point I'm trying to make is, when the moment you allow the private trade to buy in, you are left at your entire production or your capacity that you need to have for meeting the food security needs there is a tremendous shortfall as it happened in 2006, 2007. Now, but somehow we believe that APMC Act has to be done away because that's what FICCI and CII have been advocating, that we must do away with it. And the government of India is very keen to get rid of the APMC Act. The argument is that the producer will get a better price, and of course the consumer will get a better price. But with all these changes happening, existing in India for the last few years, these Reliance Fresh and Metros or whatever these companies, have the farmers got a better price? The ITC has had a program of each of us. Many journals have done cover stories on it. It depends on how much money you pay to the magazine. But they have done cover stories on the wonders of each of us. But where is the Madhya Pradesh farmer gaining from each of us? These are the things which have never been looked into the way they should have been looked into, whether it really benefits the farmers. But the idea of each of us was to prepare for the kind of movement that the country is getting into, which is linking up with the corporates. So the idea is that you produce cheaper food here, and then it will benefit the corporates. They buy directly, and each of us would be the kind of a linkage of the enabling center which does it. But nevertheless, let's move on from each of us and see where have the corporates, these retail chains that have come up in India in the last few years, have they really benefited farmers? And also have they really benefited the consumers? The consumers are happy. In fact, I've always been saying consumer is not a king. Consumer is the most idiot person on the planet. You can sell him anything if you know how to sell. You can even sell him poison, you pack it very nicely and sell it to him, he will accept it. Now that's the kind of consumption pattern that we see all over the world today, and that is why Mrs. Obama is putting all the pressure to drive out those companies which are resulting or which are getting the younger children in America become obese. So she's driving all those companies, especially cornflakes and so on, all these companies out of America, and India is welcoming all those companies in. We are saying it will bring in investment, so therefore it is valuable for a country like India. They are driving them out, and we are welcoming them in. So that's the kind of development model that I'm sure Montec would be very happy, because that increases the country's GDP. But having said that, the argument that this APMC Act and so on, and these companies that came in fact, there is a study for various cities. If you see, but many times you are not able to pick up that. But NABARD study for Hyderabad. Hyderabad has about 30 bigger supermarkets, chains, shops operating for selling vegetables and for all these things. And according to NABARD study, they found out that the average price in these shops was about 20 to 30% higher than what was there in the open market. This is a NABARD study, not a study done by us. Similarly, if you look at this study, there's a study done by the horticulture department in Bangalore, which tells us that the quality of vegetables and fruits in the supermarkets in Bangalore was poorer than what was available outside the market. Now these are studies which are done by the government institutions, and I think we need to take a lesson from them as to what we see as the benefit that it will drive to consumers actually is not true. So there has to be a tough regulation on saying this price is coming down. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as to what the planning commission should be doing, I think if you look at the way they are trying to measure food security, the way they are trying to dismantle the kind of agriculture that we have and move on into commercial agriculture, it's all obvious. I'm not going into the specific figures. If you want, I can do that, how much allocation has been made for what program. But today, a very startling news has come. The startling news is, every time hunger and poverty is shown on the television or on the newspapers, you always talk of sub-Saharan Africa. I'm sure all of us agree to that. Sub-Saharan Africa is the worst case. But today, the State of Children report produced by one of the international NGOs has come out with a report which says, globally, India is at the bottom of the child nutrition across the globe. Among the stunted children, they have done the child nutrition mapping, and India occupies the first position from the bottom. And I think that should tell us that in all these years of economic development and the policy planning, if India figures as far as child nutrition is concerned, and the Prime Minister himself had said that he is ashamed to see 47% of India's children malnourished, I think it is quite obvious where the planning process has helped the country. I think that is something we need to understand. Where are we heading towards if that is the situation? In fact, if you look at Kerala, we have heard a lot about Kerala's wonderful PDS program and the food security of Kerala. You will be surprised if you read the IFPRI's Global Hunger Index. Kerala and Punjab. Kerala is the first in India, Punjab is second in India when it comes to the food distribution under the PDS. Both the states rank below Honduras, Gabon and Vietnam in ensuring food security. The best that we believe is Kerala, but the International Food Policy Research Institute tells us that we are even lower than Gabon and Honduras. I think it's a warning for us. We need to look into where we are heading towards, the kind of planning that we talk about, because we never go into see the realities or the implementation, whatever it is, but there is something going wrong somewhere. Now, what should be done? Where should the Planning Commission move on to? Having known all this, the shift that is taking place in the Government of India's plan, I think let's be very clear that for any country, and more so for a country of the size of India, food security cannot be bartered or cannot be allowed to be hijacked. Food security remains essential, and when I say food security, I go by Mahatma Gandhi's principle. Mahatma Gandhi said that for a country like India, it is production by the masses, not production for the masses. So it is very important that we go in for food security system which is based on the production within the country rather than allowing the corporates to produce for us from outside the country. And I have already explained to you what it means if you were to link up or allow your agriculture or your food requirement to be met by food in other countries. So that is, I think, the first and the foremost plank of what I would suggest as the planning process for India. The second thing that we must do is we must ensure that there is no diversion of agricultural land to non-agricultural purposes. After all, you can't produce food in the air or in water. You have to produce food on the land. And land is very important, it's a precious resource. Once you destroy a piece of land, it cannot come back to agriculture production. So we have to ensure that there is no state in this country should be allowed to ensure that agriculture land is diverted for non-agriculture purposes. And when I say agriculture land, I am also including single crop area. This argument that single crop area, so we can do it unless it's double crop area, I think does not matter in this country, because lots of areas in this country can only afford one crop. And that does not mean it's not a productive land. So we must ensure that no agricultural land is diverted for non-agricultural purposes. In fact, you will be surprised. Even America is very cautious about that. A country which is zooming into other spheres. In the last farm budget that you see, 2008, America actually has provided $1,500 million to its 7 lakh farmers to invest in sustainable practices in the land so that they are not able to sell the land to the private companies. See, America is also very cautious about it. They want the land to be protected. They are a country which can afford to buy food. Yet they feel that land is very important for the production of crops. So they are giving money. I think in India, the kind of corollary we have that, we will give farmers, those who sell off their land for 30 years, will be giving them 3,000 rupees per month or so. I think it's an idiotic policy. If we are really serious, we should give 3,000 rupees before he sells the land so that he does not sell the land. Give them every month to develop that land into more productive base rather than giving it after he has sold his land to survive. So that's the kind of policy shift we need. So no agricultural land should go into non-agricultural purposes because we can't afford, given any stretch of imagination, to move away from not producing food. Even all the dollars or rupees that you're going to earn, let's say if you go by the fantastic projections being made by the Planning Commission as to what will be the growth trajectory of India, we ultimately would have to depend upon food for survival. And for a country like India, I think it is very obvious that we cannot afford to be food dependent. We will have to produce food within the country. Now for that, the third plank of the strategy should be how to then develop those lands. Monte Singh Ahluwalia and his policy planning, in my understanding, is faulty when they say that we need to have a second green revolution in the northeastern states. This was a sleeping giant we have been told all these years. So now they are moving on the green revolution model into the northeastern states and saying, you don't have to produce more here, you don't have to produce at all in Kerala, Bihar will produce for you or the Assam will produce for you. I think it's an idiotic policy. Why I'm saying this is, if you look at what the first green revolution has done,